You know, after 2 decades behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, I've learned something most people never quite understand until they've spent serious time on the road. It's not really about the driving. I mean, sure, that's what I do, that's the job, that's what the logbook says and what the bills of lading prove. But the real story, the thing that keeps you sane and centered when you're logging 70,000 miles a year across this massive country, that's about the rituals. I'm talking about the small ceremonies you build into your days, the routines that become almost sacred, the tiny traditions that mark time and space and help you remember who you are when everything outside that windshield is constantly changing. After 20 years, I've built up a whole system of these rituals, and tonight I want to share them with you. Not because they're the only way or even the right way, but because they're my way, and maybe in hearing about them, you'll understand what it really means to live on America's highways. The alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning. Not because I have to be somewhere at a specific time, though sometimes I do. Not because dispatch is breathing down my neck, though sometimes they are. No, 4:30 happens because I chose it, years ago, and it stuck. There's something about getting up before the world does, about being awake when the night is still holding on but you can feel morning coming in the quality of the darkness. It's different, that pre-dawn dark, softer somehow. I don't jolt awake. That's the first thing I learned to change, maybe 10 years in. Used to be, the alarm would blast and I'd snap up like I was under attack, heart hammering, already stressed before my feet hit the floor. But somewhere along the line, I figured out that's no way to start a day, especially when you're about to spend 12 hours or more making decisions that could kill people if you get them wrong. So I trained myself different. Now the alarm plays soft, just some quiet jazz, barely louder than a whisper. And I let myself come up gentle, like a diver rising to the surface, taking my time, no rush. Before I even open my eyes, before I reach for the light or check my phone, I do this thing where I just lie there for 60 seconds and take stock. How does my body feel? Is my back tight? Are my shoulders bunched up? Is there a headache trying to start behind my eyes? This might sound like nothing, but it matters. Your body will tell you things if you listen, and out here, you need to listen. If something's wrong, if something's off, you need to know it before you're rolling down the interstate at 65 with 80,000 pounds behind you. After that minute of stillness, I sit up, swing my legs over the edge of the bunk, and I do something that probably looks silly to anyone watching, but I've done it so long now I can't imagine not doing it. I say good morning to the truck, out loud. Just a quiet morning, girl, or hey there, let's have a good day, or sometimes just here we go again. I know how it sounds. I know the truck's not alive, not really. But after 20 years, you develop a relationship with your equipment that's hard to explain. This machine keeps me safe. It's my office, my protection, my livelihood, and yeah, kind of my home. Giving it that moment of acknowledgement, that little greeting, it sets a tone. It reminds me to respect what I'm working with. Then comes the physical wake-up. I stand and I stretch. Really stretch, the kind of full-body reaching that makes your spine crack and your muscles remember they exist. Arms up overhead, touching the ceiling of the sleeper. Side to side, feeling the ribs expand. Gentle twist in both directions. Down to touch my toes, or try to, because some mornings are stiffer than others. This takes maybe 3 minutes, but those 3 minutes are an investment. You skip them enough days in a row, and you'll feel it in your lower back, in your hip flexors, in the way your neck doesn't quite turn right when you're checking mirrors. The human body wasn't designed to sit in a seat for 11 hours straight. You've got to give it some kind of counter movement. Some reminder that it can bend and flex and move in ways that aren't just working the pedals and turning the wheel. After stretching comes the morning routine most people would recognize. Bathroom, brush teeth, wash face. But even here, I've developed my patterns. Cold water on the face always. Hot water when you're trying to wake up is a trap. It's too comfortable. It lulls you back towards sleep. Cold water shocks the system just enough, gets the blood moving, opens your eyes. And I brush my teeth longer than most people probably do, a full 2 minutes, because I learned years ago that taking care of your teeth on the road is harder than it should be. Miss too many dental appointments, let things slide, and you'll end up with problems that can ground you. And when you're out here, you can't afford to be grounded by something preventable. Then comes the part that really starts the day, the walk around. This is where ritual meets responsibility, where the thing I do for me overlaps with the thing I do for safety. Federal law requires a pre-trip inspection before you move that truck. You're supposed to check the truck systematically, looking for anything that might be wrong, anything that could cause a breakdown or worse, an accident. And I do that. I follow the checklist. But over the years, the walk around has become something more than just compliance. I step out of the cab into whatever weather is happening. Could be scorching Texas heat even at 5 in the morning. Could be Minnesota cold that hits you like a slap. Could be Oregon rain or New Mexico wind or Carolina humidity so thick you feel like you're breathing water. Whatever it is, I take a moment to just feel it. Stand there, feet on the pavement or gravel or dirt, and let the weather touch me. Because once I'm in that cab, I'm sealed off, climate controlled, protected. And that's necessary, but it's also isolating. So these few minutes before I start, where I'm actually out in the world, feeling what the day is really like, they matter. I start at the driver's side front and I work my way around clockwise. Left front tire. Check the tread, look for cuts or bulges, make sure the lug nuts are tight and none are missing. Wheel seal, no leaks. Brake components, nothing hanging loose, no cracks in the drums. Under the truck. No fluid puddles, no dangling wires or hoses. And as I move around the vehicle, checking each component, I'm also doing this other thing that's harder to explain. I'm sensing the truck. I'm looking, yes, but I'm also feeling. Does anything look off? Does anything feel wrong? After 20 years with the same basic type of equipment, you develop an instinct. Something can pass the official checklist but still not be right, and that instinct has saved me more times than I can count. The trailer gets the same treatment. Tires, brakes, lights, landing gear, kingpin, doors if I'm in a dry van, seals if it's refrigerated. I check the load or at least verify that whoever loaded it did their job. I'm looking at how the weight is distributed, making sure nothing shifted overnight if I've been parked, making sure the straps or chains or whatever's securing the cargo are still tight. A shifted load can kill you just as dead as a blown tire or failed brakes. Maybe deader, because at least with mechanical failure you often get some warning. A shifted load can just suddenly change the whole physics of the truck, and you're fighting to stay upright and probably losing. But here's the thing about the walk around that makes it a ritual and not just a task. It's meditative. I know that sounds pretentious, and maybe it is, but it's true. As I move around the truck, checking each component, my mind settles. The worries from yesterday or the anxieties about today, they quiet down. There's just the checklist, the visual inspection, the physical verification. There's just this moment, this truck, this cargo, this day beginning. It's like those 60 seconds lying still before I got out of bed, but stretched out and embodied. By the time I complete the walk around, by the time I climb back up into the cab, I'm centered. I'm present. I'm ready. And then, only then, comes the coffee decision. Now I could make coffee in the truck. I've got a decent little 12-volt coffee maker that plugs into the cigarette lighter. Or I could use a portable French press. Or I could just drink instant, which I've done in desperate times and which tastes exactly like you'd think it tastes. But most mornings, I don't. Most mornings, I drive to get coffee, and where I go depends on where I am. And choosing where to go is itself a ritual that's evolved over 2 decades of crisscrossing this country. See, every region, every state, sometimes every city has its coffee culture, and I've learned to navigate them. I've learned where the good local places are, the ones that aren't chains, the ones where they know coffee isn't just hot brown water with caffeine. And I've also learned which chains are acceptable in which situations. Because let's be real, Sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska at 5 in the morning, and your choices are limited. In the Pacific Northwest, I'm spoiled for choice. Oregon and Washington, particularly around Portland and Seattle, those places treat coffee like a religion, and I respect that. I've got my spots. There's a little drive-through place outside Portland, right off I-5, where they make this dark roast that's so smooth it drinks like silk. And the barista, this woman named Rachel, she's been there for at least 8 years now. She knows my order, has it ready before I even finish pulling up to the window. That's not because I'm special. That's because I'm consistent, and consistency builds relationships, even the tiny ones, even the ones that only last 2 minutes while she hands me a cup and I hand her a 5 and tell her to keep the change. In the South, coffee culture is different. It's sweeter, often literally, with sweet tea being just as much of a morning ritual as coffee for some folks. But I've found my places there too. There's a truck stop outside Atlanta where they make chicory coffee, which is a New Orleans thing that spread a bit. And the first time I tried it, I thought I'd made a mistake. It's bitter, almost medicinal if you're not used to it. But I kept trying it, and eventually my palate adjusted. And now when I'm rolling through Georgia, I look forward to it. It's become associated in my mind with that particular stretch of I-75, with the red clay earth and the pine trees and the humidity that makes your shirt stick to your back even in October. The Midwest is diner country, and I'm talking about real diners, the kind that have been in the same family for 40 years, where the coffee's always fresh because they go through it so fast, where they serve it in heavy ceramic mugs that keep it hot, and where refills are automatic and free, and nobody's timing you or pressuring you to leave. I've got a diner in Indiana, right off I-70, where I stop probably 20 times a year. Same booth in the corner if it's available, same mug, same waitress on Tuesday mornings, different one on weekends. The coffee's nothing fancy, just standard diner brew, but it's good and hot and consistent. And that consistency is worth something when everything else in your life is constantly moving. Out west, in places like Montana and Wyoming and Idaho, you learn to appreciate the gas station coffee more than you might expect. I'm not talking about truck stop chains. I'm talking about little independent gas stations in towns of 300 people, where they make one pot in the morning and maybe another at lunch. And if you show up at 2 in the afternoon, you're getting coffee that's been sitting for hours and tastes like it. But in the morning, right when they open, you can get a cup that's honest. It's not trying to be anything fancy. It's just hot, black, strong enough to do the job. And often the person pouring it will have time to actually talk about weather or road conditions or local news. And those conversations, brief as they are, they're part of the ritual too. The coffee stop serves multiple purposes. Yes, it wakes me up, though after 20 years I think I'm more addicted to the ritual than the caffeine. Yes, it gives me something warm to hold, which is comforting in a way I don't fully understand but don't question. But more than that, it's a transition. It's the bridge between sleeping and driving, between being stationary and being in motion. It's a few minutes where I'm neither here nor there, where I'm just a person getting coffee, same as millions of other people at that same moment across the country. And there's something else about the coffee stop that I've come to value, something I didn't understand for probably the first decade of driving. It forces me to interact with people. When you live on the road, when your world is mostly just you and the truck and the other drivers you only communicate with via CB radio or a wave as you pass each other, it's easy to become isolated. It's easy to forget how to talk to people face to face, how to make eye contact, how to smile and say thank you and mean it. The coffee stop, brief as it is, keeps those skills alive. It reminds me that I'm part of something larger, part of the normal daily flow of human activity, not just some ghost moving along the highways. I've noticed patterns in my coffee habits over the years. In spring, I tend to drink it faster, barely tasting it, eager to get moving because the weather's finally nice, and the days are getting longer, and there's this sense of possibility in the air. In summer, I slow down, sometimes sitting in the truck with the AC running, taking my time with each sip, because once I start rolling, the day is going to be long and hot, and I want to enjoy this cool moment. Fall, I go for darker roasts, richer flavors, something about the changing leaves and cooling air making me want something more substantial. And winter I'm all about temperature. I want that coffee as hot as possible, want to wrap my hands around the cup and feel the heat seeping into my fingers, want that first sip to be almost too hot, making me wince a little but also feeling perfect because everything outside is cold and gray, and this is a small bright spot of warmth. I've also learned over time to pay attention to how coffee affects me. On days when I'm well rested, when I slept solidly for 7 or 8 hours, I only need 1 cup. That first coffee is enough to shake off the last cobwebs and get me sharp. But on days when sleep was rough, when I tossed and turned or only got 5 hours or had to park in a loud truck stop where trucks were coming and going all night, I might need a second cup around mid-morning. I've learned not to push beyond 2 cups though. More than that and I start getting jittery, start noticing my hands shaking on the wheel, start feeling my heart beating a little too fast. And out here, you need steady hands and a calm heart. There's no room for coffee jitters when you're navigating rush hour traffic in Chicago or dealing with crosswinds on I-80 through Wyoming. The coffee ritual also marks time for me in a way that's hard to explain. Each cup is a marker, a punctuation point in the day. The first cup says, we're beginning. The second cup, if there is one, says, we're well underway. And then there's no more coffee until the day is done, until I'm parked for the night. And then sometimes, if I'm feeling indulgent, I'll make a small cup in the truck, just something to sip while I'm winding down, reading or watching something on my tablet. That evening coffee, when it happens, says, we survived another day, we're safe, we can rest. It's the bookend to the morning cup, and together they frame the working day. I've also come to appreciate regional coffee traditions in ways I never expected. In Louisiana, the drive-through daiquiri shops often also serve coffee. And yes, I know how strange that sounds, but it's a thing, and their coffee is usually quite good. In Texas, gas station coffee is often surprisingly excellent, maybe because Texans take their independence seriously, and even their gas stations try to stand out. In New England, especially Vermont and New Hampshire, I've found that small-town general stores often have the best coffee, made by people who genuinely care about it, who use good beans and clean equipment and take pride in serving something worth drinking. And then there are the times when the coffee ritual gets disrupted, when something goes wrong or circumstances change. And I've learned those moments are just as important as when everything goes smoothly. Like the time in Nevada when my usual stop was closed for renovation, and I had to find somewhere else. And I ended up at this little Mexican restaurant that had just opened for breakfast. And they served me coffee in a mug with their horchata recipe on the side. And that coffee, strong and a little spicy, served by a grandmother who called me Mijo. Even though I'm definitely not her son, that became a new ritual, a new stop I try to hit whenever I'm on that route. Or the morning in Minnesota when it was 18 below zero and my truck wouldn't start, and I had to walk a half mile to a gas station, and the guy working there, seeing how cold I was, poured me coffee and wouldn't let me pay for it. And that coffee, that free coffee from a stranger showing basic human kindness, it tasted better than any cup I've ever paid for. It reminded me why these rituals matter, why these small interactions are important. We're all just trying to get through our days, and sometimes a cup of coffee and a moment of connection is what makes the difference between a hard day and an impossible one. The coffee stop ritual has taught me patience too. In the early years, I used to get frustrated when the line was long or the service was slow. I'd tap my fingers on the steering wheel, check the time constantly, feel this urgency pushing at me. But somewhere along the way, I learned to let that go. If there's a line, there's a line. If it takes 10 minutes instead of 3, it takes 10 minutes. I'll still get where I'm going. The freight will still be delivered. And getting bent out of shape about something I can't control, all that does is start my day on the wrong foot. Puts me in a mindset that's going to make every little problem seem bigger than it is. So now when I pull up to get coffee and there's a wait, I use that time. I might check my route for the day, make sure I know where I'm going and what the road conditions are supposed to be like. I might return a text message to my daughter or my friend back home. I might just sit and listen to the radio, let whatever song is playing wash over me. The waiting becomes part of the ritual, another small space of transition, another few minutes where I'm between states, not yet fully in driving mode but no longer in rest mode either. And finally, there's this. The coffee stop gives me something to look forward to. On those mornings when everything feels hard, when I'm tired or sore or just not in the mood to face another day on the road, I can tell myself, just get to the coffee. Just make it that far. Get through the wake up, get through the walk around, and then there's coffee waiting. And once I've got the coffee, once I'm sitting there with the warm cup in my hands and that first sip hitting my tongue, the day always seems more manageable. It's a small promise I make to myself every single morning. There will be coffee. There will be that moment of warmth and comfort and normality. And whatever else the day brings, at least there's that. Fire up the truck, let the engine warm for a minute, fasten the seatbelt, adjust the mirrors, check the gauges. And then, before I even put it in gear, I reach for the CB radio and turn it on. That little click, that brief burst of static before it settles into silence or catches a conversation already in progress. That sound is as much a part of starting my day as the coffee was. The CB radio, channel 19 usually, sometimes 17, occasionally one of the local channels if I'm in an area where I know the truckers use something different. That's my connection to the community of the road. Now I know what you're thinking. CB radios are outdated. We've got cell phones now, we've got apps, we've got all kinds of modern communication technology. And you're right, we do. But the CB is different. The CB is real time. It's location specific. It's anonymous until you choose not to be. And it's a shared channel that anyone with a radio can join. It's democratic in a way that other communication isn't. You don't need a smartphone or a data plan or even literacy. You just need a CB radio and a willingness to listen and talk. My handle is Montana Mike, though I'm not from Montana and my name's not Mike. I picked it 20 years ago when I was doing a lot of runs through Montana and Mike was my grandfather's name, and it stuck. That's how handles work. Sometimes they reflect something real about you. Sometimes they're aspirational. Sometimes they're just random words that sounded good at the time. But once you've been using a handle for a while, it becomes part of your identity on the road. Other drivers know you by it. You develop a reputation, good or bad, based on what you say and how you say it under that handle. The morning check-in is a ritual within a ritual. Usually within the first 30 minutes of driving, I'll key the mic and say something simple. Montana Mike, northbound on I-75, anybody out there got ears on? That's CB speak for I'm here, I'm listening. Anyone want to talk? And depending on the day, depending on where I am, depending on who else is out there, I might get silence, or I might get a chorus of responses. The responses tell you a lot. If someone comes back with just their handle and direction, southbound Sam heading your way, that's acknowledgement without commitment. They've confirmed they heard you, they've identified themselves, but they're not necessarily looking for conversation. If someone asks a specific question, how's the road looking up ahead? Or you heard anything about traffic around exit 220? They're using the CB for its practical purpose, gathering information that might help them do their job better. And if someone comes back with something more personal, morning Mike, how's it rolling today? Then you've got someone who's in the mood to chat, to pass some time, to have a little human connection while the miles roll by. I've learned when to talk and when to just listen. Early morning people are often quiet, focused on getting started, not yet in the mindset for conversation. Mid-morning, around 9 or 10, the CB tends to liven up. Drivers have been on the road long enough to feel comfortable. They're not too tired yet, and the monotony is starting to set in, making conversation welcome. Afternoon, it can go either way. Sometimes people are too focused on making miles, too concerned with their schedule to want to chat. Other times, the afternoon slump hits and conversation is a way to stay alert. Late night, the CB takes on a different character entirely. The voices get quieter, more thoughtful. There's less joking around, fewer complaints about other drivers or traffic. Late night CB conversations are more likely to be real, to touch on things that matter. I've heard drivers talk about missing their families, about struggling with health problems, about their fears and hopes, and the small daily challenges that don't seem worth mentioning in daylight, but somehow become important when it's 3 in the morning and you're somewhere in the middle of Kansas with nothing but darkness and stars around you. The CB also serves as an early warning system. Someone spots a cop running radar, they call it out. Bear in the bushes, eastbound at mile marker 157. Someone encounters an accident or road construction or bad weather up ahead. They share it. Four-wheeler rolled over in the median, blocking the left lane around exit 89. Move right if you're heading that way. This information sharing is one of the oldest traditions in trucking, predating the CB itself. Drivers have always looked out for each other, always passed information that might help someone else avoid trouble or stay safe. And there's an etiquette to it, unspoken rules that you learn by observation. Don't hog the channel. If you're having a conversation, keep it moving. Don't just sit on the mic while others might need to share information. Don't be crude for no reason. Yeah, the CB can get rough, can get vulgar, but there's a difference between colorful language that's part of the culture and just being an asshole because you think you're anonymous. Don't spread false information. If you call out a cop and there's no cop, if you report an accident that doesn't exist, that's not just annoying, it's dangerous. People make decisions based on what they hear on the CB, and those decisions affect safety. I've made friends through the CB. Real friends, people I've never met face to face but who I talk to regularly when our routes overlap. There's a driver who goes by Colorado Kate, and I've been hearing her voice on and off for probably 15 years now. We started chatting one morning somewhere in Wyoming, talking about the weather and the road conditions, and over time we've shared pieces of our lives. I know she's got 2 kids, one in college now, one in high school. I know she's divorced, been on her own for about 6 years. I know she loves audiobooks and has recommended half a dozen that I've listened to and enjoyed. And she knows things about me, about my daughter, about the time I almost quit this job but couldn't quite walk away, about the truck I drove for 12 years before getting my current one. We've never exchanged phone numbers, never connected on social media, never tried to meet up even when we knew we were going to be in the same city. The CB relationship is enough. It's its own thing, valuable exactly because it exists in this specific context and doesn't try to be anything more. The CB has also taught me about the breadth of humanity out here. You hear all kinds of voices. Young guys fresh out of driving school, eager and nervous, and asking a million questions. Old-timers who have been doing this for 40 years and have seen everything and aren't impressed by much anymore. Women drivers, and there are more of them now than when I started, holding their own and often better drivers than most of the men. Immigrant drivers, their English accented but clear, working their tails off, often running teams with a family member, trying to build a better life. All of us out here doing the same basic job, moving freight from point A to point B, but coming from different places, heading to different futures, carrying different stories. And yeah, the CB can be frustrating too. There are the idiots who think they're comedians, who key up and make stupid sounds or tell jokes that aren't funny or just generally waste everyone's time. There are the angry ones, always complaining about something, always blaming someone, the government or the companies or the receivers or other drivers. Just a constant stream of negativity that's exhausting to listen to. There are the ones who have clearly got some kind of mental health stuff going on, who ramble incoherently or say things that don't quite make sense, and you feel sorry for them, but you also wish they'd find someone to talk to who could actually help them. But mostly, the CB is a good thing. It's a reminder that I'm not alone out here. Even on the longest, most boring stretches of highway, even in the middle of nowhere with no other trucks visible in any direction, I can key that mic and someone will usually answer. That connection, that knowledge that there are other people doing exactly what I'm doing, facing the same challenges, dealing with the same bullshit, celebrating the same small victories, it matters. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you human. I've developed certain patterns with CB use over the years. In the morning, I check in and listen more than I talk. Midday, if I hear someone asking a question I can answer, I'll key up and help out. Late afternoon, if I'm getting tired, I'll sometimes initiate a conversation, ask how other people are doing, use the engagement to help me stay alert. And at night, I mostly listen, let other people's voices be a companion without demanding that I be fully present. There's also a musical quality to CB conversation, a rhythm and flow that's particular to it. The call and response pattern, the way information gets passed along from one driver to another like a relay race. The shorthand language that's evolved over decades. 10-4 meaning I understand, I acknowledge. What's your 20? Meaning where are you? Keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down, meaning drive safe, don't roll over. This language, this CB jargon, it's like a dialect, and being fluent in it marks you as part of the community. And then there are the moments that transcend the normal CB chatter, moments that remind you why this communication channel, as old and outdated as it might seem, still matters. Like the time I was driving through a snowstorm in Pennsylvania, visibility was terrible, and I heard another driver calling out, voice tight with stress, saying he just lost traction and was sliding, needed everyone to know he was having trouble. Multiple drivers immediately responded. People behind him backed off to give him space. Someone ahead of him confirmed the road was clear. Others offered advice about how to regain control. The whole thing lasted maybe 90 seconds, but in that minute and a half, a community came together to help someone in trouble. And the driver recovered, got his truck straightened out, and came back on the radio to thank everyone. And the response was just, 10-4, brother, that's what we're here for. Or the time I heard a driver, older guy, clearly emotional, announce that his wife had just called and told him his first grandchild had been born. And everyone on that channel, probably 20 or 30 drivers within range, every single one of them keyed up to congratulate him, to share in that moment of joy. Some told their own stories of becoming grandparents. Some made jokes about getting old, but all of it was warm and genuine and human. And that driver, you could hear in his voice that he was crying happy tears, and no one gave him grief for it. No one mocked him. We all just shared in his happiness for a few minutes before everyone went back to driving. The CB radio dance, as I think of it, is about finding the balance between solitude and community. As a truck driver, you spend vast amounts of time alone. That solitude can be peaceful, can be meditative, can be exactly what you need. But too much solitude becomes isolation, becomes loneliness, becomes a kind of mental where that's hard to recover from. The CB provides an antidote, a way to reach out and touch the edge of human connection without requiring the full commitment of a deep interaction. It's a middle ground, and that middle ground is where I've learned to live most comfortably. I've also learned that the CB tells you things about America that you might not learn any other way. You hear regional accents, the drawl of the South, the flat vowels of the Midwest, the faster pace of the Northeast. You hear about local events, festivals in small towns, high school football games that everyone's excited about, county fairs and rodeos and harvest celebrations. You hear political views from all over the spectrum, some of which make you nod in agreement, some of which make you shake your head in disagreement, but all of which remind you that this country is vast and diverse and complex. And sometimes, the CB is just entertainment. Sometimes someone's in the mood to tell a story, and they'll key up and just start talking, and everyone else will shut up and listen because the story's good. War stories from decades past, tales of legendary drives, recounting of some interaction with a customer or a cop, or a dispatcher that was funny or infuriating or just bizarre. These stories get passed around, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes repeated so many times they become part of the folklore of trucking, but they're important. They're the oral history of this profession, the way knowledge and culture get transmitted from one generation of drivers to the next. The CB has survived every prediction of its death. When cell phones became common, people said the CB would disappear. But it didn't. When smartphones and apps made communication instant and reliable, people said the CB was done. But it's still here, because the CB serves a purpose that those other technologies can't quite replicate. It's immediate, it's local, it's shared, and it's simple. You don't need to download an app or create an account or enter a password. You just turn it on and you're part of the conversation. That simplicity, that accessibility, that's what keeps the CB alive. So every morning, as part of my ritual, I turn on the CB. I listen to who's out there, what people are talking about, what information is being shared. I add my voice when it makes sense to do so. I stay connected to the community of drivers who are all doing this same strange job, all living this same odd life, all navigating the same highways toward different destinations. And that connection, maintained day after day, year after year, becomes one more thread in the fabric of rituals that keeps me grounded, keeps me sane, keeps me able to do this job I've somehow been doing for 20 years. There's something about a state line that never quite loses its power, even after you've crossed them 10,000 times. You're driving along, the road looks the same in every direction. The trees or fields or desert or whatever landscape you're passing through doesn't suddenly change. And yet there's this sign. Welcome to whatever state, and something shifts. Not the road, not really. What shifts is inside you, some sense of progress, of transition, of having completed one thing and begun another. I've developed a ritual around crossing state lines that I didn't plan or decide on consciously. It evolved over time, became automatic, and now I could not do it any more than I could not check my mirrors or not use my turn signal. When I see that welcome sign approaching, when I know I'm about to enter a new state, I take a breath, a deliberate, conscious breath. In through the nose, hold it for a beat, out through the mouth. Just one breath, but it marks the moment. And then once I'm across, once that welcome sign is in my mirrors instead of on my windshield, I say something. Out loud to myself, to the truck, to no one really. Sometimes it's just the state's name, Montana, Idaho, Nevada. Sometimes it's more. Okay, Arizona, let's see what you've got today. Sometimes it's a little check-in with myself. 300 miles down, 800 to go. The exact words don't matter. What matters is the acknowledgement, the marking of the moment, the recognition that something has changed even if everything looks the same. This probably sounds like nothing, like such a small thing it's barely worth mentioning. But here's the thing about life on the road. Without these markers, without these small rituals of acknowledgement, the days bleed together. You're just driving, always driving, and one highway looks like another, and one day feels like the last, and you can lose track of where you are, not just physically but mentally. The state line ritual gives me structure. It gives me a way to track progress that's more meaningful than just watching mile markers or checking GPS coordinates. Each state has its own character, its own feel, even if you're just driving through it. Montana's wide open spaces and big sky that lives up to the license plate motto. Idaho's mountains and forests, feeling wilder somehow than other mountain states. Nevada's stark desert beauty that can be either peaceful or oppressive depending on your mood. Arizona's heat and color, reds and oranges that seem to glow even in photographs. And as I cross into each state, as I take that breath and say that word, I'm preparing myself mentally for what's coming. I'm shifting gears emotionally to match the terrain. I've noticed that different states trigger different emotions in me, and those emotions have become part of the crossing ritual. When I enter Wyoming, I feel anticipation. Wyoming is one of my favorite states to drive through. All that open land and those incredible skies, and crossing into it feels like coming home even though I've never lived there. When I enter California, I feel alertness kick up a notch. California traffic is aggressive. The roads are busy. There's an intensity to driving there that requires more focus. So crossing that line, I'm prepping myself, getting ready to be sharper. When I enter my actual home state, wherever I'm coming from, there's a wave of complicated emotion. Relief, because I'm close to familiar territory, to people I know, to places that mean something to me personally. But also sometimes disappointment, because crossing back into home state often means the run is almost over, which means the paycheck is almost complete, which means I'll soon be looking for the next load, the next trip, starting the whole cycle over again. And if I've been gone for a long time, there can be nervousness too, wondering what I've missed, whether everything at home is okay, whether I'll slot back into normal life easily, or whether there will be adjustment needed. The ritual also helps me track time in a way that's meaningful. When you're driving professionally, when you're keeping logbooks and tracking hours of service, and watching the clock to make sure you're compliant with regulations, time becomes very mechanical. You're counting hours, watching countdown timers, calculating when you need to stop because your 14-hour clock is about to run out. That's necessary, but it's also exhausting, and it reduces time to just a set of numbers to be managed. The state line ritual gives me a different way to measure time. Instead of I've been driving for 7 hours, I can think I've crossed 3 states today. Instead of I've got 3 hours left in my day, I can think 1 more state to go, then I'll find somewhere to park. It's a more narrative way of understanding time, and narrative understanding is easier for the human brain to handle than pure mathematics. I've also started photographing state line signs when I can do it safely. Not every time, because often traffic or road conditions don't allow for it. But when circumstances permit, I'll pull out my phone as I'm approaching the sign and snap a quick picture. I've got hundreds of these photos now, probably thousands. Most of them are nothing special photographically, just a sign from a moving vehicle, often blurry or cropped weirdly or taken at a bad angle. But they're a record. They're proof that I was there, that I made that crossing, that I covered that ground. And sometimes, when I'm having a hard day or feeling like this job is too much, I'll scroll through those photos and remind myself of all the places I've been, all the miles I've covered, all the roads I've traveled. It's grounding. It's a way to see my own life mapped across geography. There are some state lines that are more significant than others, that have taken on special meaning over the years. The California-Nevada line on I-80, coming out of the mountains into the desert, that's always felt dramatic to me. You're winding through the Sierra Nevada, then suddenly you're in Reno, and within minutes you're in open desert, and the transition is so stark it almost doesn't feel real. The Colorado-Kansas line on I-70, where the mountains end and the plains begin, where you go from dramatic elevation changes to flat straight road that seems to go on forever. That's another one that always makes me take notice. The Florida-Georgia line on I-75 is special because it means I'm either entering the long run down the Florida peninsula or I'm escaping it. And either way, it's a transition worth noting. The Montana-Idaho line on I-90, where you leave Montana's prairies and enter Idaho's mountains. That's beautiful. And the Texas state lines, all of them, they're special just because Texas is so damn big. Entering Texas feels significant, and leaving Texas, after you've driven across it for hours and hours and hours, feels like an achievement. I've also learned that state lines can be psychological barriers, and crossing them can provide mental boosts when you need them. If I'm tired, if I've been driving for a long time and still have a long way to go, spotting that welcome sign for the next state can give me a second wind. It's proof of progress. It's a concrete marker that says, you've come this far, you can keep going. This isn't always rational. Sometimes crossing a state line means I still have 800 miles to go, but just the act of crossing it, of marking that transition, makes those 800 miles feel more manageable. Similarly, I've learned to break up long runs mentally by state. If I'm looking at a 2,000-mile trip, that can feel overwhelming. But if I think of it as 5 states, averaging 400 miles per state, suddenly it feels doable. Each state becomes a chapter, and finishing a chapter is always easier than finishing a whole book. This is just mental gaming, I know, but mental gaming is important when the job is as mentally demanding as this one can be. The state line ritual has also taught me about the country in ways I wouldn't have learned otherwise. Each state has its own laws, its own speed limits, its own traffic patterns, its own road quality. Some states maintain their highways beautifully, smooth pavement and clear markings and well-maintained rest areas. Other states, and I'm not naming names but you know who you are, seem to forget that roads require upkeep, and you're bouncing over potholes and dealing with faded paint and wishing someone in the state government would remember that infrastructure matters. Some states are strict about enforcement, cops everywhere, speed traps common, a sense that you better follow every rule or you'll get ticketed. Other states are more relaxed, laissez-faire. As long as you're not being truly dangerous, they leave you alone. Learning these differences, adapting to them, anticipating what each state is going to be like. That's part of the skill of being a professional driver, and the state line ritual is where I consciously engage with that knowledge. I've crossed some state lines hundreds of times. The Oregon-Washington line on I-5. I've probably crossed that 500 times in 20 years, both directions. And you'd think it would get old, that it would become so routine I wouldn't notice anymore. But the ritual keeps it fresh. Each time I still take that breath, I still mark the moment. Because even if I've done it 500 times before, this particular crossing, happening right now on this specific day, is unique. The weather's different, my mood's different, the cargo I'm hauling is different, the time of day is different. So while the action of crossing is routine, the experience of crossing never quite is. And sometimes, the state line ritual connects me to memory in powerful ways. I'll cross into New Mexico and remember the first time I drove through New Mexico, 20 years ago, how foreign and beautiful the landscape seemed to me, coming from the Midwest where everything was flat and green. Or I'll cross into Oregon and remember a particular trip years ago when the wildflowers were blooming, and the whole state seemed to be painted yellow and purple. These memory flashes, triggered by crossing a state line, they're not something I seek out or try to force. They just happen, rising up unbidden, and they're welcome. They remind me that this job, for all its challenges and monotony, has also given me experiences, has shown me beauty, has created a life story that's richer than it might have been if I'd stayed in one place. There's also something about state lines that makes them natural stopping points for rest or food. I'll see the welcome sign and think, okay, I've made it to Nevada, time to find a truck stop and get some fuel and grab a snack. The state line becomes a trigger for self-care, a reminder to check in with my physical needs. Have I been driving too long without a break? Am I hungry, thirsty, need to use the bathroom? The transition of crossing the line creates a natural moment to ask these questions. And finally, crossing state lines reminds me of how big this country is. I know that intellectually, of course. I know the distance between coasts, I know the square mileage of various states, I know the numbers. But numbers are abstract. Crossing 47 different state lines, some of them dozens of times, that's concrete. That's embodied knowledge. My body knows how big America is in a way that someone who's only flown over it or seen it on a map can't quite grasp. And that knowledge, that deep physical understanding of scale and distance, it's part of who I've become as a driver and as a person. So every single time I approach a state line, I engage with this ritual. Breath in, breath out mark the moment. It takes maybe 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds, repeated thousands of times over 20 years, they've become part of the architecture of my life on the road. They're one more way I stay present, stay connected, stay human while doing a job that could so easily become just mechanical routine. If there's a time of day that consistently stops me in my tracks, that makes me remember why I chose this life despite all its difficulties. It's that hour or so around sunset when the light does things that seem almost unreal. I've seen hundreds, maybe thousands of sunsets from the driver's seat, and they never quite get old. But somewhere along the way, I turned sunset watching from something that just occasionally happened to catch my attention into an actual ritual. Something I plan for and make time for when circumstances allow. The perfect sunset stop isn't always easy to find. It requires several things to align. I need to be in the right place at the right time, which means I need to have been paying attention to where the sun is throughout the afternoon, so I can anticipate where I'll be when it starts to set. I need to be somewhere that has a place to pull over safely, which eliminates a lot of otherwise beautiful stretches of highway. I need to not be racing against a deadline so tight that stopping for 15 minutes means missing a delivery window. And I need the weather to cooperate, which it often doesn't. But when it all works out, when I can find a rest area or wide shoulder or turnout with a good view to the west, when I can bring the truck to a stop and shut off the engine and just sit there and watch the sun go down, those are moments that justify everything else. Every traffic jam, every difficult receiver, every night spent parked in a loud truck stop, every hour of boredom, every bit of loneliness, all of it becomes worth it when I'm sitting there watching the sky do things that look like someone's painting in real time, layering colors that shouldn't work together but somehow do. The thing about sunsets is they're different everywhere. Pacific Northwest sunsets, when you can see them through the clouds and rain, they're soft and diffused, pinks and oranges that blend together gently. Desert sunsets in Nevada or Arizona or New Mexico, they're intense, reds and purples that look almost violent, the sky on fire. Midwest sunsets, out on the plains where the horizon stretches forever, they're vast, the whole western sky becoming a canvas. Mountain sunsets, like in Colorado or Montana, they're dramatic, the sun dropping behind peaks, light and shadow playing across the landscape in complex patterns. I've learned to read sunsets like a language. The colors tell you about the atmosphere, about whether that's coming or whether that's passing. A red sunset might mean clear weather tomorrow. A yellow-orange sunset might mean storms are coming. The quality of the light, whether it's harsh or soft, whether it makes everything look golden or whether it casts deep shadows, that tells you about humidity and air quality, and a dozen other factors that meteorologists could explain better than I can, but which I've learned to interpret through observation. And watching sunset has become a form of meditation for me, even though I never would have used that word for it in my early years of driving. Back then, if I noticed sunset at all, it was just a thing that happened, pretty maybe, but not something that required my attention. Now when I stop for sunset, I'm fully present in a way I'm not always able to be while driving. When you're driving, even if the road is straight and the traffic is light, part of your mind is always engaged with the mechanical task, monitoring mirrors, watching gauges, staying alert for hazards. You can't fully let go. But stopped for sunset, engine off, parking brake set, nothing to do but watch, I can let go. I can feel my shoulders drop, feel the tension in my neck ease, feel my breathing slow and deepen. And I can just look, really look at what the sky is doing. Watch how the colors shift minute by minute. Notice the clouds and how they're lit from below, turning gold and pink and orange. See the way the light changes the landscape, making ordinary things look extraordinary, catching on windshields or water or the chrome of other trucks, creating little sparks of reflection. I've taken hundreds of sunset photos over the years, and like the state line photos, most of them aren't technically good. The lighting is challenging. I'm usually shooting through a windshield which creates reflections and distortion, and I'm not a skilled photographer. But I keep taking them because I want to hold onto the moment somehow. Want proof that I saw what I saw, that the colors were really that intense, that the sky really did look like that. And sometimes, when I'm scrolling through my phone late at night before sleep, I'll look at those sunset photos and remember where I was, what road I was on, what that particular evening felt like. Some sunset locations have become favorites, places I try to hit at the right time when I know my route is going to take me past them. There's a rest area in Wyoming on I-80, up on a high point where you can see for miles in every direction. And the sunsets there are spectacular because there's nothing between you and the horizon, just empty land and big sky. There's a truck stop in Arizona off I-40 that has picnic tables set up on a little rise, and truckers will gather there sometimes to watch sunset together. An informal community moment that feels special precisely because it's not organized or official, just people drawn to the same beautiful thing. There's a stretch of I-90 in Montana where the highway runs along a ridge, and if you time it right, you can watch the sun sink toward the mountains while you're still rolling, and the whole landscape seems to glow. I try not to stop on this stretch because there's really nowhere safe to pull over, but I slow down, let other traffic pass if anyone's behind me, and I drink in the view while still keeping enough attention on the road to be safe. It's a balance, and it probably would horrify a safety instructor to hear me describe it, but I've done it enough times that I know my limits, know how to split my attention without becoming dangerous. And then there are the unexpected perfect sunsets, the ones that happen when I'm not planning for them, when I'm just driving and suddenly I notice the light is doing something incredible, and I find myself looking for any excuse to stop, any place to pull over, any way to pause and witness what's happening. These surprise sunsets feel like gifts, like the universe is rewarding me for paying attention. The twilight hour that follows sunset is special too, though in a different way. That time when the sun has dropped below the horizon, but darkness hasn't fully arrived. When the sky goes through this transition from day colors to night colors, deep blues and purples, and sometimes a lingering orange along the western horizon. This is the time when the first stars appear, when lights start coming on in houses and towns, when the world shifts from day mode to night mode. Driving through twilight has its own mood, contemplative somehow, quieter even though the actual noise level hasn't changed. I've learned to love twilight driving, the way familiar landscapes look different in the fading light, the way your headlights start to matter but don't quite dominate yet, the way you're transitioning from day vision to night vision, your eyes adjusting gradually rather than all at once. And twilight is when I often do my evening family check-in. If my daughter's home and not busy, if my friend is available, twilight is when I'll call them. There's something about the transitional quality of the time that makes it feel right for connection, for touching base with the people who matter to me. And if they're not available, if I can't reach them or they're busy, twilight is when I'm most likely to feel the loneliness of this job, when the vastness of the country and my small place in it feels most acute. But even the lonely twilights are beautiful. Even the times when I'm missing people or missing home or just feeling the weight of all the miles I've driven and all the miles still to come. There's still the sky, still the changing light, still the evidence that the world is beautiful, and I'm privileged to see it from angles, and at times that most people never experience. I've learned to photograph twilight too, though it's even more challenging than sunset. The low light means photos are often blurry unless you can brace the camera somehow, and the color gradients are subtle, hard to capture with a phone camera. But when I get a twilight photo that works, when the camera actually captures something close to what I'm seeing with my eyes, those are the photos I'm most proud of, more than the dramatic sunset shots, because they represent a trickier accomplishment. The sunset ritual has also taught me about timing and anticipation. To catch a good sunset, you have to plan ahead. You have to know where you'll be at that time of day. You have to be willing to adjust your schedule sometimes, maybe stopping earlier than you'd planned or pushing through to a specific location. And sometimes you plan everything perfectly, and then clouds roll in and there's no sunset visible, or you get to your spot and there's construction or the view is blocked or something else goes wrong. Learning to accept those disappointments, to not let them ruin the evening, that's been part of the ritual too. And the sunset ritual connects me to something beyond just my immediate experience. When I'm watching the sun set over Nevada, I know that same sun set over California an hour earlier and will set over the East Coast a few hours later. People all over the country, all over the world, are watching or have watched or will watch the same sun at their own local sunset time. In that moment, watching that golden light fade, I'm participating in something universal, something humans have been doing and responding to for as long as our species has existed. There's comfort in that, in being part of something so much larger than my individual life. Sunset also marks a natural division in the workday. Everything before sunset is day driving, which has its own characteristics and challenges. Everything after sunset is night driving, which is completely different. So sunset becomes a marker, another one of those transition points like crossing a state line, where I can check in with myself, assess how the day has gone so far, and prepare mentally for the night shift if I'm going to keep driving. Sometimes, watching sunset, I'll think about where I was this time yesterday, where I'll be this time tomorrow. It's a way of tracking time that feels more meaningful than just looking at a clock. Yesterday's sunset found me in Oregon. Tonight I'm in Idaho. Tomorrow I'll be in Montana. The geography becomes a calendar, and sunset is how I read it. And finally, the sunset ritual is a reminder to slow down, to notice, to be present. This job can become all about efficiency, about moving freight quickly, about maximizing miles and minimizing downtime. And that's important. That's how you make money. That's how you stay employed. But if that becomes all you're doing, if you're never pausing to notice the beauty around you, if you're never taking a moment to just be instead of always doing, then what's the point? You're spending your life moving through amazing landscapes and never actually seeing them. The sunset ritual is my antidote to that trap, my regular reminder that this job, for all its challenges, gives me access to beauty that's worth appreciating. There's a phrase in trucking, the witching hours. That stretch from midnight to maybe 3 or 4 in the morning when the roads are emptiest, when the world feels most asleep, when you're most alone with your thoughts and the darkness and the endless white lines reflecting in your headlights. Not every night do I drive through these hours. If I've planned my day well, I'm often parked by 10 or 11, getting rest, preparing for an early start. But sometimes the schedule demands it. Sometimes the load is urgent. Sometimes I just end up pushing later than planned, and I find myself out there in the deep night. Driving through these hours requires a different kind of alertness than daytime driving. Your body wants to sleep. Evolution has programmed humans to be diurnal, to rest when it's dark, and fighting against that programming is hard. The statistics about drowsy driving, about how dangerous it is, about how it impairs you as much as being drunk, those aren't exaggerations. I've felt it, the way your eyes want to close, the way your head starts to nod, the way you suddenly realize you don't remember the last few miles. It's terrifying when it happens, and it's one of the reasons I've developed such strict rituals around night driving. First rule of the midnight to 3 a.m. window. If I'm too tired, I don't drive. Doesn't matter what the schedule says. Doesn't matter if it means missing a delivery window. Doesn't matter if dispatch is going to be unhappy. If I feel unsafe, I pull over and sleep. This took me years to truly internalize, because the pressure to keep moving is real. Both external pressure from the company and internal pressure from my own sense of responsibility and work ethic. But I've seen too many accidents, heard too many stories, known too many drivers who pushed when they shouldn't have and paid terrible prices. So if I'm too tired, I stop. No exceptions. But assuming I'm alert enough to drive safely, the midnight to 3 a.m. hours have their own particular character, and I've developed rituals for navigating them. The first thing I do, usually around 11 or 11:30 if I know I'm going to be driving late, is take a short break. Not a long one, just 20 or 30 minutes. I'll pull into a rest area or truck stop, get out of the cab, walk around, do some stretching, maybe do a few jumping jacks or push-ups to get blood flowing. Get a cold drink, use the bathroom, splash cold water on my face. The goal is to interrupt the drowsiness that starts creeping in during evening hours and reset my alertness before heading into the deep night. Temperature control matters more at night than during the day. I keep the cab cooler than I would in daytime, sometimes uncomfortably cool. The cold helps keep me alert. If I'm too warm, too comfortable, that's when drowsiness becomes dangerous. So I'll crack a window even if it's cold outside, let fresh air flow through the cab, accept being a little chilly as the price of staying alert. I also use noise differently at night. During the day, I often drive in relative quiet, maybe some music or a podcast, but often just the sound of the truck and the road. At night, especially in those witching hours, I need more stimulation. I'll turn music up louder, choose songs with strong beats that keep energy high. Or I'll listen to podcasts that are engaging enough to hold my attention without being so interesting that they distract from driving. Audiobooks can work too, though I have to choose them carefully. Too boring and they put me to sleep. Too exciting and I get too focused on the story and not enough on the road. Talking helps, even if it's just to myself. I'll sometimes narrate what I'm doing, call out what I'm seeing, just to keep my brain active and engaged. Coming up on mile marker 247, checking mirrors, all clear. Semi about a half mile back, maintaining distance. Fuel gauge showing 3/4. Temperature gauge normal. It sounds insane, probably, if anyone could hear me, but it works. The act of verbalizing keeps me present and alert. The CB radio becomes more important at night too, even though there are fewer voices. When I do hear someone, when I can engage in even a brief conversation, it's a lifeline. Human contact, human voices, they combat the isolation and help maintain alertness. And if the CB is quiet, sometimes I'll key up just to hear my own voice in the speaker, announce my location, ask if anyone's out there. Even silence in response is somehow better than just sitting in solitude. I've also learned to be strategic about what I eat and drink during these hours. Caffeine, yes, but carefully timed. Too much and I'll be jittery and my heart will race and I'll feel uncomfortable. Too little and I won't get the alertness boost I need. So I'll usually have one strong coffee around midnight, then maybe a second one around 2 if I'm still driving. And I'll drink water too, lots of it, because staying hydrated helps with alertness, and also because the frequent need to use the bathroom gives me a reason to stop periodically, get out, move around, reset. Snacking is tricky. Heavy food makes you drowsy, so I avoid anything too substantial. But I need something to keep my blood sugar stable, so I'll usually opt for protein, maybe beef jerky or nuts. Things I can eat while driving that give sustained energy without the crash that comes from sugar. The landscape looks different at night, obviously, but it's more than just the darkness. Familiar routes take on an unfamiliar character. You're navigating more by memory and GPS than by visual landmarks. The world reduces to what your headlights illuminate, and everything beyond that pool of light is mystery and suggestion. Towns you'd barely notice in daylight become bright points of light in the darkness. Farmhouses glow like beacons. Highway signs shine more intensely. And the sky, when you're out in the middle of nowhere far from city lights, The sky at night is something else entirely. Stars beyond counting, so many they don't look like individual points but like clouds of light. The Milky Way visible as a band across the heavens. Planets bright and steady among the twinkling stars. Satellites moving slowly across the field of view. Occasional meteors streaking through. I've pulled over more than once in the middle of the night, somewhere out in rural Montana or Nevada or Wyoming, just to kill the headlights and look up at that sky, to be reminded of how small I am and how vast the universe is. There's a loneliness to night driving that you don't feel as acutely in daylight. During the day, even if you're not interacting with anyone, you can see other vehicles, see buildings, see people going about their lives. You're part of a visible world. At night, especially in those midnight to 3 a.m. hours, you can go long stretches without seeing another vehicle. You're isolated, alone with the darkness and your thoughts. And while that isolation can sometimes be peaceful, sometimes meditative, it can also be oppressive. This is when thoughts you've been keeping at bay during the busier daylight hours have a way of surfacing. Worries, regrets, fears, the big questions about life and meaning, and what you're doing with your time on Earth. I've learned to navigate these thought spirals without letting them pull me too far down. Sometimes they're actually valuable, these late-night contemplations. Sometimes you think through problems more clearly in the quiet and solitude. Sometimes you gain insight or clarity that wouldn't come in the noise and distraction of day. But sometimes the thoughts just turn dark and circular, and when that happens, I've learned to intervene. Change the music, make a phone call if someone's available, key the CB and try to start a conversation, pull over and take a break. Whatever breaks the spiral. The witching hours are also when you're most likely to encounter unusual things. Wildlife more active at night, deer and elk and occasionally bears or moose crossing the road, requiring constant vigilance. Drunk drivers, because bars close around 2 and the roads fill briefly with people who shouldn't be driving. Emergency vehicles heading to accidents or medical calls. And occasionally something you can't quite explain. Lights that don't behave like normal vehicle lights. Sounds that don't make sense. A general strangeness that comes from being awake and alert when most of the world is asleep. I remember one night on I-90 in Montana, probably around 2 in the morning, I saw what I initially thought was a UFO. Bright light in the sky, moving in ways that didn't match any aircraft I knew. I watched it for probably 10 minutes, completely perplexed, before I finally realized it was a drone. Someone was flying a drone with bright lights attached, and in my sleep-deprived state, I jumped to aliens rather than the much more mundane explanation. I felt foolish, but also it was a good reminder of how your perception gets weird when you're tired, how your brain makes strange connections. The midnight to 3 a.m. ritual also involves checking in with my body more frequently than I do during other hours. Every 30 minutes or so, I do a deliberate self-assessment. Are my eyes tired? Is my vision blurry? Am I having trouble focusing? Is my neck stiff? Are my hands gripping the wheel too tightly? Am I yawning excessively? If the answer to any of these is yes, I know I need to take action. Maybe just a quick 5-minute stop to stretch and walk and reset. Maybe a longer break if I'm more seriously fatigued. And I never, ever use cruise control during these hours, even on straight, empty highways. Cruise control during late-night driving is dangerous because it reduces engagement. You're not actively working the pedals, which means one less thing keeping you connected to the act of driving, which means it's easier to zone out. So I drive manually, feet on the pedals, constantly making small adjustments, keeping myself engaged and active. I've also learned to recognize the signs that I need to stop completely, that I've hit my limit and continuing would be unsafe. There's a quality to the fatigue, a heaviness, where everything starts to feel dreamlike and unreal, where the white lines start to hypnotize you, where you catch yourself drifting towards sleep, where you have those micro-sleep episodes that are terrifying because you suddenly snap awake and realize you were gone for a second or two. When I feel that, I pull over immediately. No debate, no negotiation with myself, no just a few more miles. I find the nearest safe place to stop, pull in, set the brakes, and sleep. Usually just an hour or 90 minutes is enough to reset, to take the dangerous edge off the fatigue. I'll set an alarm, curl up in the sleeper, and let myself drift off. And when I wake, if I still feel too tired to drive safely, I'll sleep longer. The load can wait. The schedule can adjust. Nothing is worth the risk of falling asleep at the wheel. The end of the witching hours, when you start to see the sky lightening in the east, when the first hints of dawn appear, that's a special feeling. You've made it through. You're on the other side. The danger period is passing. And there's something about having been awake and alert while most people were sleeping, about having navigated through those dark hours, that feels like an accomplishment. Not a big one, not something anyone else would notice or care about, but a personal victory nonetheless. And sometimes, if I've been driving through the night and I know sunrise is coming soon, I'll try to find a good place to stop and watch it, to bookend the night shift with both sunset and sunrise, to see the full cycle of darkness and light. Those are long days, those days that stretch from pre-dawn through sunset, through night, and into sunrise again. But they're also the days when I feel most connected to the rhythm of the earth, most aware of the rotation of the planet and the movement of the sun and my small place in all of it. Eventually, no matter how long the day has been, no matter how many miles I've covered, the time comes to park for the night. And where you park matters. The truck stop you choose can make the difference between a restful night that leaves you refreshed for the next day and a miserable night of interrupted sleep that leaves you groggy and irritable. So choosing where to park has become a ritual with its own considerations and patterns. The ideal truck stop has several characteristics. It's got plenty of parking so you're not circling forever looking for a spot. It's well lit so you feel safe, but not so bright that light pours into your sleeper and keeps you awake. It's relatively quiet, though quiet is a relative term in a truck stop where engines are running all night for heat or AC or refrigeration. It's got clean facilities, showers that work, bathrooms that aren't disaster areas. It's got decent food options, because often I'm hungry when I park and I'm hungry again when I wake up. And ideally, it's got friendly staff, people who treat drivers with respect rather than like cattle to be herded through. The major chains, Flying J and Pilot and Loves and TA, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Some are consistently better maintained than others. Some have loyalty programs that matter if you're buying fuel there regularly. Some are in better locations, off busy highways or near cities with bad traffic. Over 20 years, I've developed a mental map of which truck stops I like and which I avoid, which ones are good for overnight parking, and which are better for just a quick fuel stop. But I also try to mix it up. Try independent truck stops and rest areas, and sometimes just safe pull-offs on less traveled roads. The rest areas, especially in western states where they're built to accommodate trucks, can be great options. They're free, which saves money. They're often quieter than commercial truck stops. They're generally cleaner. And there's something appealing about parking in a rest area, about being on public land rather than private property, about the egalitarian nature of it. The ritual of parking itself has multiple steps. First is finding the spot. I'm looking for a pull-through if possible, because backing up with a trailer is fine when you have to do it, but why do it if you don't have to? I want a spot that's not right next to the bathroom entrance, where there will be constant foot traffic and door slamming. I don't want to be too close to the fuel islands where trucks are coming and going all night. I don't want to be near the truck wash if there is one. Basically, I want a spot that's as isolated and quiet as possible within the constraints of available parking. Once I've picked my spot and maneuvered the truck into it, I go through my parking checklist. Parking brake set. Transmission in neutral or park depending on the truck. Engine idling or off depending on temperature and whether I'll need heat or AC. Wheels chalked if I'm on any kind of slope, which is rare in truck stops but happens sometimes. Curtains closed for privacy. Phone plugged in to charge. Check that the alarm is set for whatever time I need to wake up. Then comes the evening routine. If I haven't eaten recently, if I'm hungry, I'll walk over to whatever food options are available. Sometimes that's fast food in the truck stop building. Sometimes that's a sit-down restaurant attached to the truck stop. Sometimes, if I've been planning ahead, it's food I've prepared in the truck, sandwich fixings or canned soup, or something else simple that doesn't require much cooking. I prefer preparing my own food when possible. It's healthier, cheaper, and I know exactly what's in it. But some nights I'm too tired or too hungry to bother, and the convenience of buying something prepared is worth the extra cost and reduced nutrition. After eating, if I need a shower, I'll grab my shower kit and head in. Truck stop showers have improved a lot over the years. Used to be they were pretty grim, dirty and cramped with water pressure that was either too weak or too strong and temperature control that was non-existent. Now, especially at the major chains, they're usually pretty decent. Still not home quality, but clean and functional. The shower is less about getting clean and more about the psychological reset, the washing away of the day, the preparation for rest. I take my time, let hot water work on sore muscles, use the steam to clear my sinuses, stand there longer than I strictly need to because it feels good. Back at the truck, evening hygiene continues. Brush teeth, floss, maybe use mouthwash if I've got it. Change into sleep clothes, comfortable loose things that don't bind or restrict. If it's been a sweaty day, I'll use baby wipes to freshen up, since I don't shower every single night. This probably sounds like too much information, but it's part of the ritual, part of the transition from work mode to rest mode. Then I'll usually spend some time on my phone or laptop if I've got internet access. Check email, read news, scroll social media, text with friends or family. This is often when I'll call my daughter if we haven't talked during the day. Just a quick check-in to hear her voice, ask about her day, share something about mine. These calls rarely last more than 10 or 15 minutes, but they're important. They're how we maintain connection despite the distance and despite my schedule. Some nights I'll read actual books or magazines, though more often ebooks on my tablet or phone. I tend toward nonfiction, history or biography or books about topics I'm interested in but know little about. Reading before sleep helps my brain shift gears, gives me something to think about other than the next day's route or whatever problems I'm dealing with. And unlike TV or internet browsing, reading makes me naturally drowsy after 20 or 30 minutes, setting me up for easier sleep. Other nights I'll watch something, a movie or TV show, though I'm picky about what I watch before bed. Nothing too intense or scary or action-packed, because that gets adrenaline going and makes it harder to fall asleep. I prefer comedies or gentle dramas, things that are engaging enough to hold my attention but not so gripping that I'll stay awake thinking about them after I've turned them off. I've learned over the years that I sleep better with some white noise, some background sound that masks the various truck stop noises that would otherwise wake me up. Engines starting, trailers getting coupled or uncoupled, people talking, trucks driving past. All of that becomes less noticeable if I've got a fan running or a white noise app playing. I've got a good box fan that I run in the sleeper most nights, and the constant hum is so associated with sleep for me now that I often have trouble falling asleep without it. The sleeping space itself, the sleeper berth, I've tried to make as comfortable as possible. Good mattress, invested in that early on because cheap mattresses will destroy your back and your sleep quality. Quality pillows, more than one because I like to prop myself up a bit when I'm first lying down. Blankets in layers so I can adjust warmth level easily. Blackout curtains to block light. And various personal touches, photos of my daughter, a small bookshelf with favorites, some trinkets and mementos from places I've been. The sleeper might be small, might be just a few feet wide and 6 or 7 feet long, but it's my space, and I've learned to make it feel like home. Temperature control is crucial for good sleep. Too hot and I'll toss and turn all night, wake up sweaty and uncomfortable. Too cold and I'll curl up and be tense and never fully relax. I've experimented over the years and found that I sleep best when the sleeper is cool, maybe 65-68 degrees, with enough blankets to stay warm. This means running the engine or an APU, auxiliary power unit, for climate control, which costs money in fuel or electricity, but good sleep is worth it. Running on too little sleep is dangerous, and danger costs more than a bit of diesel. Before I actually try to sleep, I'll do a quick mental review of the next day. Where am I going? What time do I need to leave? What's the route? Are there any special considerations, difficult receiver, bad traffic expected, weather issues? This review helps me sleep better because I've dealt with the planning, gotten it out of my head and onto paper or into my GPS or wherever it needs to be. I'm not lying awake worrying about forgetting something or oversleeping or getting lost. And then, finally, I'll do one last check of my alarm. Is it set for the right time? Is the volume up high enough that it will actually wake me? This probably sounds paranoid, but I've heard too many stories of drivers who overslept because their alarm didn't go off, or they didn't hear it, or they accidentally set it for PM instead of AM. So I double-check, triple-check sometimes, because oversleeping can mean missing a delivery window, which can mean angry customers and possibly lost business. Sleep itself, the actual falling asleep, is sometimes easy and sometimes hard. On good nights, nights when I'm properly tired but not overtired, when I've eaten well but not too much, when I've wound down gradually instead of going straight from driving to bed, I can fall asleep within minutes. Just close my eyes and I'm out, dropping into deep sleep easily. Those are the nights I treasure, because I'll sleep straight through for 6 or 7 hours and wake up feeling genuinely refreshed. But some nights sleep is elusive. Too wired from the day's stress. Too much caffeine too late. Mind won't shut off, keeps running through problems or conversations or worries. On those nights I've learned not to force it, not to lie there getting increasingly frustrated that I can't sleep. Instead, I'll turn the light back on, read for a while longer, or listen to a podcast, or sometimes just lie there with my eyes closed doing breathing exercises until eventually sleep comes. And some nights sleep is interrupted. Wake up for bathroom breaks, which are annoying when you're parked because you have to get dressed enough to go outside or use a container, which is less than ideal. Wake up because of noise, someone slamming a door or revving an engine or talking loudly. Wake up because of temperature changes, the heater cutting off and the sleeper getting cold, or the sun rising and the space heating up. Wake up from dreams, sometimes good ones I'm sad to leave, sometimes bad ones I'm relieved to escape. The quality of sleep varies enormously from night to night, and I've learned that I can't always control it. Some things I can influence: where I park, how I prepare for sleep, what I eat and drink, how I manage my schedule. But some things are just luck or circumstance or biology. And I've had to make peace with that, had to accept that some mornings I'll wake up feeling great and ready to take on the world, and other mornings I'll wake up feeling like I barely slept and the day ahead seems daunting and difficult. The morning wake-up, when it comes, starts the cycle over again. Alarm goes off. I take my 60 seconds lying still to assess how I feel, and then we're back to the beginning. The pre-trip walk around, the coffee stop, all of it flowing into another day on the road. But the truck stop night ritual, everything from choosing where to park through the evening routine through the attempt to sleep, it's all designed to give me the best possible chance of rest and recovery. Because without good rest, everything else falls apart. Alertness suffers, mood suffers, health suffers, safety suffers. The truck stop night is when I recharge, when I reset, when I prepare myself to do it all again tomorrow. Before I talk about food, I need to tell you about another ritual that's become absolutely central to how I navigate this job: reading weather and adapting to it. In 20 years of driving, I've learned that weather isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you have to anticipate, respect, and work with. And developing rituals around weather awareness has probably saved my life more times than I can count. Every single morning, before I even think about starting to drive, I check the weather. Not just where I am currently, but along my entire planned route for the day. I use multiple sources because no single weather service is perfect. The National Weather Service website, a couple of weather apps on my phone, radar imagery, and increasingly, I listen to what other drivers are reporting on the CB about conditions they're encountering. I'm looking for several things. Obviously, precipitation. Is it going to rain, snow, sleet? How much and when? But I'm also looking at temperature because temperature affects road conditions in ways that aren't always obvious. A wet road at 35 degrees is a different animal than a wet road at 50 degrees. Wind speed and direction matter enormously when you're driving a tall vehicle with a high profile. Crosswinds can push you around, especially when you're empty or lightly loaded. Fog forecasts, visibility predictions, any weather alerts or warnings. And then I take all that information and I make decisions. Do I adjust my route to avoid the worst of whatever's coming? Do I adjust my timing, leaving earlier or later to miss a storm system? Do I pack extra supplies just in case, more food and water than normal in case I get stuck somewhere? Do I make sure my phone is fully charged, make sure I've got paper maps as backup in case GPS fails, make sure someone knows my route and expected arrival times? This weather ritual isn't paranoia, it's professionalism. I've driven through ice storms where the road was a skating rink and visibility was measured in feet. I've driven through thunderstorms where lightning was striking all around, and the rain was so heavy that even with wipers on full blast, I could barely see. I've driven through whiteout blizzards where I couldn't see the hood of my own truck. I've driven through dust storms in the southwest where the air turned brown and the sun disappeared. I've driven through hurricanes, though I try hard not to, and tropical storms and nor'easters and tornadoes, or at least near enough to tornadoes that I could see the funnel clouds. Every single one of those situations required specific adaptations, specific strategies for staying safe. And the ritual of checking weather and preparing mentally and physically for what's coming, that's what makes the difference between handling difficult conditions competently and getting into serious trouble. Snow and ice are probably what I respect most, what I prepare for most carefully. When I know winter weather is coming, my pre-trip inspection becomes even more thorough. Tire tread depth matters more. Brake condition matters more. I check that my chains are in good shape and accessible if I need them, even though I hate chaining up and avoid it when possible. I make sure my winter emergency kit is complete. Blanket, extra food, water, flashlight, first aid kit, flares, shovel, sand, or kitty litter for traction if I get stuck. And then, when I'm actually driving in snow or ice, I slow down dramatically. Doesn't matter what the posted speed limit is. Doesn't matter if other vehicles are going faster. Doesn't matter if it means I'm going to be late. I drive at whatever speed feels safe given the conditions, which is often 30 or 40 mph on highways where I'd normally do 65 or 70. My following distance increases, sometimes by triple or more, because stopping distance on slippery roads is so much longer than on dry pavement. I watch for trouble spots, bridges and overpasses that ice up before regular road surfaces, shaded areas where ice might linger even after sunny sections have cleared, entrance and exit ramps where cars might have dragged snow and slush that then refreezes. I monitor my mirrors constantly because even if I'm driving safely, some idiot behind me might not be, and I need to be aware if someone's sliding or losing control near me. Rain brings its own challenges, especially heavy rain. Visibility drops, other drivers become less predictable, and there's the ever-present danger of hydroplaning if you're going too fast on wet pavement. So my rain ritual involves slowing down, increasing following distance, making sure my headlights are on even during daytime, being extra cautious on painted lines and metal surfaces which get slicker than regular pavement when wet. And I've learned to read rain patterns, to distinguish between passing showers that will clear up in 20 minutes and serious frontal systems that might last for hours. The radar imagery helps with this, showing me where the rain bands are and which direction they're moving. Sometimes I can time my driving to slip between bands, getting brief breaks of dry weather. Other times I just have to accept that I'm going to be driving in rain for a while and settle in for it. Wind is trickier because you can't always see it coming. Clear sunny day, no precipitation, but 40 mph sustained winds with gusts higher, and suddenly driving becomes a wrestling match as you fight to keep the truck in your lane. Wyoming is notorious for this. Stretches of I-80 where the wind howls across open prairie and trucks blow over regularly. Montana has similar areas. The high desert of Nevada and Arizona can produce winds that seem to come from nowhere. My wind ritual involves checking forecasts specifically for wind speed and direction. If high winds are predicted, I try to adjust my route or timing. If I can't avoid driving in high winds, I slow down significantly, grip the steering wheel firmly with both hands, stay hyper-alert for gusts that might push me sideways. I watch for trucks ahead of me that might be having trouble, for debris blowing across the road, for areas where the wind might be funneling between hills or buildings and hitting especially hard. And I know my limits. If winds are sustained above 45 or 50 mph with higher gusts, I seriously consider parking until they die down. It's not worth the risk. An overturned truck can mean injuries or death, can mean totaling the truck and losing my job, can mean hurting other people. So when wind gets that bad, pride and schedule go out the window and safety becomes the only consideration. Heat brings different challenges. Engine overheating, especially climbing grades in summer in places like California's Grapevine or Nevada's mountains. Tire blowouts because heat increases tire pressure and weakens rubber. Dehydration and fatigue affecting my own performance. So hot weather rituals involve monitoring engine temperature closely, being prepared to pull over and let the engine cool if needed. Checking tire pressure more frequently. Drinking even more water than usual. Taking more frequent breaks because physical and mental fatigue come on faster in heat. And then there's fog, which I've come to respect almost as much as ice. Dense fog can reduce visibility to nearly zero, and unlike rain or snow where you can often see at least a little, fog can be completely opaque. I've driven through fog so thick I literally couldn't see the end of my own hood, had to navigate by watching the white line at the edge of the road, creeping along at 10 or 15 mph, hazards flashing, praying no one was going to rear-end me. Fog ritual. If I encounter dense fog, I slow way down, turn on all my lights including flashers, crack the window so I can hear better since I can't see much, and I stay ready to pull over completely if visibility becomes absolutely zero. And I'm constantly checking my mirrors because the biggest danger in fog is often the vehicle coming up behind you too fast. I've also learned about regional weather patterns, knowledge built up over years of driving the same routes. I know that spring in the Midwest means tornado season, so I'm extra vigilant checking radar and watching the sky. I know that late summer in the Southwest means monsoon season, afternoon thunderstorms that can be violent but brief. I know that fall in New England means beautiful foliage, but also unpredictable weather, snow possible even in September at higher elevations. I know that winter anywhere in the northern tier means being prepared for serious cold and snow. This regional weather knowledge helps me anticipate, helps me plan, helps me avoid the worst conditions when possible. If I know I'm going to be in the Midwest in April, I pay extra attention to tornado forecasts. If I'm heading through the mountains in winter, I check road condition websites for information about chain requirements and closures. If I'm going through the desert in summer, I make sure I'm carrying extra water not just for me, but for the truck in case of radiator problems. The weather ritual has also taught me patience. Sometimes you just have to wait. Storm too severe to drive through, you park and wait for it to pass. Road closed due to conditions, you wait for it to reopen. Sometimes that waiting is frustrating, costs you time and money, but it's better than the alternative. And I've learned to use waiting time productively. Catch up on paperwork, do maintenance on the truck, rest, read, whatever makes the time pass more comfortably. And there's something almost meditative about watching weather, about being attuned to the sky and the wind and the temperature, and all the subtle signs that tell you what's coming. The way clouds build on a summer afternoon signaling possible thunderstorms, the particular quality of light before a snowstorm, the stillness in the air that sometimes precedes severe weather, the ring around the moon that can indicate precipitation is coming. I've learned to read these signs not with scientific precision, but with practical intuition built from thousands of observations. Weather has killed truck drivers. Ice, wind, flood, extreme heat and cold, lightning, tornadoes. The list is long and sobering. So treating weather with respect, building rituals around awareness and preparation and appropriate response, this isn't optional or excessive. It's survival. And after 20 years, the weather ritual is so ingrained that I could not do it any more than I could not breathe. Check the weather, understand what's coming, prepare appropriately, adjust plans if needed, drive with conditions in mind, always prioritize safety over schedule. If there's one thing that can make or break life on the road, it's food. You can deal with bad weather, with difficult traffic, with mechanical problems, with demanding dispatchers and unreasonable customers. But if you're eating badly, if you're not getting decent nutrition, if you're just shoveling whatever's convenient into your mouth without thought, eventually it catches up with you. Your energy crashes, your mood sours, your health deteriorates, your ability to focus and drive safely degrades. So over 20 years, I've developed a whole system around food, a set of rituals and strategies that help me eat as well as possible given the constraints of life on the road. The first challenge is simply access. When you're driving, you're limited to what's available along your route. Truck stops, fast food restaurants, occasional grocery stores if you have time to stop. And the food at truck stops, while convenient and often tasty in a greasy sort of way, is generally not what you'd call healthy. Fried everything, burgers, hot dogs, pizza, all of it heavy and high in calories and low in nutritional value. You can't eat like that every day, or you can but you'll pay for it in weight gain and sluggishness and eventual health problems. So one of my early rituals, something I try to do at the beginning of each week or whenever I'm starting a new run, is to stop at a grocery store and stock up on better options. Fresh fruit, apples and oranges and bananas that can handle being in the truck for a few days. Vegetables that don't require refrigeration, like carrots and celery that I can snack on raw. Whole grain bread, peanut butter jam. Canned soup, the decent kind, not the super salty cheap stuff. Nuts, almonds and cashews and peanuts for protein and healthy fats. Cheese, the kind that comes in individually wrapped sticks or blocks that keep reasonably well. Granola bars, looking for ones with actual nutrition, not just candy bars disguised as health food. This grocery shopping trip takes time, maybe an hour all told, including finding a store I can safely park near, going in, selecting items, checking out, loading everything into the truck. But it's time well spent because it means I have options. Means I'm not entirely dependent on truck stop convenience stores and fast food joints. And shopping for actual food, walking through a normal grocery store among normal people doing normal shopping, it's grounding somehow. It reminds me that underneath the truck driver identity, I'm just a regular person with regular needs. The truck itself becomes a kitchen of sorts. I've got a small cooler that I keep stocked with ice packs, giving me a way to keep perishables fresh for a day or two. I've got a portable electric lunchbox that can heat food when I'm parked and plugged into shore power. I've got basic utensils, a cutting board, a sharp knife that I keep clean and protected, paper plates and bowls because washing dishes in a truck is impractical, napkins, paper towels, hand sanitizer for cleaning up, and I've learned to assemble meals in the truck that are actually decent. A sandwich made with good bread and actual deli meat and cheese, and some lettuce and tomato from the grocery store. That's infinitely better than a fast food burger. A can of quality soup heated up and paired with some crackers and fruit. That's a real meal. A snack of nuts and cheese and an apple. That's nutritious and satisfying. But I'm also realistic. I can't cook real meals in the truck, can't do elaborate food preparation, don't have the facilities or the time or frankly the energy most days. So I allow myself fast food, just try to choose wisely when I do. Go for the grilled chicken instead of fried. Get the side salad instead of fries, or if I'm getting fries, get a small instead of large. Drink water or unsweetened tea instead of soda. These small choices add up over time, make a difference in how I feel. I've also become something of a regional food explorer. Every part of the country has its specialties, its local favorites, and seeking these out has become one of the pleasures of the job. In the South, I look for good barbecue, the real deal, smoky and tender and complex in flavor. Every state does it a bit differently. North Carolina vinegar-based versus Memphis tomato-based versus Texas dry rub. And trying the local variations is a delicious education. In the Southwest, I seek out Mexican food, not Tex-Mex but actual Mexican. The small family-owned places where no one speaks much English and the food is authentic and delicious. Green chili in New Mexico, Sonoran hot dogs in Arizona, fish tacos in California near the coast. These meals are highlights, moments when I'm not just eating to fuel my body but actually enjoying food as an experience. In the Midwest, I look for diners serving comfort food, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, chicken fried steak, pot roast. The kind of food your grandmother might have made, hearty and filling and nostalgic. And in New England, seafood, fresh lobster rolls in Maine, clam chowder in Massachusetts, oysters in Rhode Island. These regional specialty meals are treats, not everyday occurrences, because they're not always available along my route and they're often more expensive than standard road food. But when I can make them happen, they're worth it. They break up the monotony, give me something to look forward to, and they're part of how I experience the diversity of this country. Food becomes a way of engaging with local culture, of moving beyond just passing through a place and actually tasting it, literally. I've also developed relationships with certain restaurants over the years, places where I stop regularly enough that they start to recognize me. There's a diner in Pennsylvania where the waitress knows my usual order: eggs over easy with whole wheat toast and hash browns. There's a barbecue place in Tennessee where the guy behind the counter remembers that I like my pulled pork with extra sauce on the side. These small recognitions, these tiny moments of being seen and remembered, they matter more than you might think when so much of your life is spent anonymous and transient. Coffee, as I mentioned earlier, is its own ritual, but food often accompanies it. A muffin or bagel with morning coffee, or sometimes, if I'm feeling indulgent, a cinnamon roll or donut. I try not to make sweet breakfast a habit because the sugar crash mid-morning is rough, but occasionally as a treat it's fine. And there's something deeply satisfying about a good cup of coffee and a pastry, sitting in the truck cab watching the sunrise, that makes any day start better. Hydration is another important piece of the food ritual. I keep water bottles in the truck constantly, go through probably a gallon or more on a typical day, more in hot weather. Staying hydrated is crucial for alertness, for physical comfort, for avoiding headaches and fatigue. And while other drinks are fine in moderation, water needs to be the primary beverage. I learned this the hard way early in my career when I wasn't drinking enough and ended up with kidney stones, which was one of the most painful experiences of my life and put me out of work for a week. Since then, water has been non-negotiable. I also try to maintain some regularity with meal timing, even though my schedule varies day to day. Breakfast within an hour of waking if possible. Lunch somewhere in the middle of the driving day, typically around noon or 1. Dinner when I park for the night. This regular rhythm helps my body know what to expect, helps with digestion and energy levels. When I'm forced to skip meals or eat at weird times because of schedule constraints, I can feel the difference, feel my body getting confused, and my energy becoming unstable. And I've learned to listen to my body's signals about food. Actually hungry versus just bored and wanting to eat. Need protein and substance vs just want something sweet. Thirsty versus hungry because sometimes what feels like hunger is actually dehydration. This mindful approach to eating took years to develop, and I still don't always get it right. But I'm better at it now than I was in my 20s when I just eat whatever whenever without much thought. The relationship between food and mood is real and significant. Good food makes me feel better emotionally as well as physically. Taking time for a real meal, sitting down even if it's just in the truck cab, actually tasting and enjoying what I'm eating instead of shoveling it in while focused on something else. These practices improve my state of mind. They're small forms of self-care, ways of telling myself that I matter, that I deserve to eat well, that I'm worth the effort of feeding properly. Conversely, when I'm eating badly, when I'm just grabbing whatever's fastest and most convenient, when I'm living on junk food and caffeine, my mood suffers. I get irritable, pessimistic, prone to negative thinking. The connection is clear and direct, and recognizing it has motivated me to take food seriously as part of my overall well-being strategy. I've also learned about food safety on the road, which is important when you're keeping food in less than ideal conditions. How long can things sit in the cooler before they're unsafe? What foods are risky and which are stable? I've gotten food poisoning exactly once in 20 years, from some questionable chicken at a truck stop, and that was enough to make me very cautious. Now I pay attention to dates on packages, to how cold the cooler is, to how things smell and look, and when I have any doubt at all, I throw it out. No meal is worth being sick, especially not when being sick means I can't work and can't earn money. Special occasions get special food treatment. My birthday, which sometimes falls while I'm on the road, I'll plan ahead and make sure I'm near a good restaurant, somewhere I can get a real meal that feels like a celebration. Same for holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas if I'm not able to get home for them. I'll find the best food option available, something beyond standard road fare, and take time to enjoy it, to mark the day as special even though I'm working. And I've gotten creative about celebratory meals in the truck too. I've grilled steaks on a small portable grill in truck stop parking lots, much to the amusement and sometimes envy of other drivers. I've made elaborate sandwiches that rival anything you'd get in a deli. I've heated up canned chili and topped it with cheese and onions and jalapenos, and made it into something that felt special. These small acts of making food good instead of just functional, they're important psychologically. They combat the sense that my life on the road is just about getting through each day rather than actually living. There's also a social dimension to food on the road. Sometimes I'll meet up with another driver I know, grab dinner together at a truck stop restaurant, trade stories over burgers and coffee. These shared meals, these moments of eating with other humans rather than alone in my truck, they break isolation, provide connection, remind me that I'm part of a community even when I spend so much time alone. And when I do get home, when I'm off the road for a few days or a week, food becomes one of the primary ways I reconnect with normal life. I cook real meals in a real kitchen. I eat at a table instead of in a driver's seat. I enjoy fresh vegetables and elaborate dishes that would be impossible to prepare on the road. These home meals are rejuvenating. They remind me why I'm doing this job, and they give me something to look forward to during long stretches away. The food ritual, all of these patterns and practices around eating, they're about more than just nutrition. They're about self-respect, about taking care of myself, about maintaining humanity and dignity in a job that can sometimes feel dehumanizing. Every good meal I eat is a small victory. Every time I choose the healthier option or take time to actually enjoy what I'm eating or seek out something special, I'm reminding myself that I'm worth the effort, that my life matters, that these days I'm spending on the road are my life, not just preparation for some future life, and they deserve to be lived well even in small ways like eating decent food. So there they are, the rituals I've built over 20 years of driving America's highways, the morning wake-up and the walk-around inspection that grounds me before each day, the coffee stop that eases me into motion and connects me to the passing world, the CB radio dance that keeps me part of a community even when I'm alone, the state line crossings that mark progress and transition, the sunset watching that reminds me why this life, with all its challenges, is also privileged and beautiful, the midnight to 3 a.m. hours when alertness becomes paramount and solitude becomes acute, the truck stop nights when I try to rest and recover, and the food rituals that keep me healthy and remind me that I deserve care and nourishment. These are not the only rituals, not even close. There are dozens more, smaller ones, brief moments and repeated patterns that have woven themselves into the fabric of my days. The way I check mirrors, always the same pattern, driver's side to passenger's side to driver again. The way I adjust the seat every time I get in the truck, even though it's never actually moved. The way I tap the fuel gauge when I start the engine, superstitious habit that has no logical basis. The way I listen for certain sounds from the engine and transmission, alert for anything unusual. The way I document each load, noting details that might matter later. All of these rituals, large and small, they're the architecture of my life on the road. They provide structure when the geography is constantly changing. They offer consistency when everything else is variable. They keep me sane when the job threatens to overwhelm. They connect me to myself, to other drivers, to the landscape, to the country, to the simple fact of being alive and aware and moving through the world. I didn't set out to build these rituals. Most of them just evolved, emerging naturally from the need to find meaning and sustainability in a demanding job. But over time, I've come to value them, to recognize them as essential rather than optional, to understand that they're not just things I do, but part of who I've become. And I think that's true for anyone who spends serious time doing anything. You develop rituals, whether you call them that or not. Patterns that help you navigate the challenges, ceremonies that mark time and transition, small traditions that make the ordinary extraordinary. For some people, it's how they make their morning coffee, or how they commute to work, or how they tuck their kids into bed. For me, it's these trucking rituals, built up over 2 decades, refined through repetition, essential to my ability to keep doing this job year after year. If there's anything I'd want someone to take away from hearing about these rituals, it's this: pay attention to your own patterns. Notice what you do repeatedly, what brings you comfort or focus or joy. Honor those patterns, refine them, make them intentional rather than just automatic. Because those small repeated actions, those personal rituals, they're often what get us through the hard days. They're the thread that stitches our scattered moments into something like a coherent life. For 20 years now, I've been driving America's highways. And for 20 years, these rituals have been my companions, my anchors, my way of transforming what could be just a job into something more like a practice, a discipline, a way of being in the world. They've seen me through young adulthood into middle age. They've been with me through personal losses and joys, through changing relationships and evolving understanding of myself and my place in the world. And I imagine they'll keep evolving. As I age, as technology changes, as the trucking industry transforms, As my own needs and capacities shift, these rituals will adapt. Some might fall away, no longer needed or no longer possible. New ones will emerge, responding to new circumstances. But the core truth will remain. That life on the road requires these small ceremonies, these repeated patterns, these personal traditions that make meaning out of motion and connect the solitary driver to something larger than himself. So that's my offering tonight. Not advice, exactly, though you're welcome to take anything useful from it. More just a window into one driver's life, one way of navigating 2 decades on America's highways, one system of rituals built up over thousands of days and millions of miles. If it helps you understand what this life is actually like, what it takes to sustain it, what rewards it offers along with its challenges, then I'm glad. And if it inspires you to think about your own rituals, your own patterns, your own ways of making meaning and finding stability in whatever work you do, then that's even better. The road is calling again. Tomorrow morning the alarm will sound at 4:30. I'll take my 60 seconds of stillness, stand and stretch, greet the truck, do my walk around, find my coffee, turn on the CB and head out into another day. Another sunrise to witness, another state line to cross, another sunset to catch if I'm lucky, another evening to navigate, another night to rest, another meal to eat. The rituals will carry me through, as they always have, as I trust they always will, for however many more years I keep turning the key and rolling down these American highways. Before I close out these reflections on 20 years of rituals, there's one more that deserves attention, one that might be the most important of all, even though it's less romantic than watching sunsets or crossing state lines. The ritual of truck maintenance. The regular, repeated, unglamorous work of keeping this machine in good working order. Because without a functioning truck, none of the other rituals matter. You're not going anywhere. I learned early, maybe in my 3rd or 4th year of driving, that the relationship between a driver and their equipment isn't just practical or mechanical. It's almost spiritual, if that doesn't sound too grandiose. This truck, whatever particular truck I'm driving at any given time, it's not just a tool. It's my partner, my protector, my livelihood. It carries me through every kind of weather and road condition. It's where I spend more time than I spend anywhere else. Treating it with care and respect isn't optional. The maintenance ritual starts with the daily pre-trip inspection I've already mentioned, but it goes deeper. It's checking fluid levels regularly, not just when a light comes on, but proactively. Engine oil, coolant, transmission fluid, power steering fluid, windshield washer fluid. Each one matters. Running low on any of them can cause problems ranging from annoying to catastrophic. So once a week, minimum, I'm checking these levels, topping off what needs it, looking for any signs of leaks or other issues. Tire maintenance is its own subset of rituals. Checking tire pressure weekly with an actual gauge, not just eyeballing it or thumping them with a tire iron. Inspecting tread depth, looking for uneven wear patterns that might indicate alignment problems. Checking for damage, cuts in the sidewalls, objects stuck in the treads. Tires are literally where the rubber meets the road, and tire failure at highway speed is terrifying and dangerous. So I'm vigilant about tire condition. Replace them before they're critically worn. Rotate them according to manufacturer recommendations. Brake checks are another critical maintenance ritual. Pre-trip inspection includes a brake test, but I'm also paying attention to how brakes feel and sound during driving. Any change in pedal feel, any unusual noises, any sense that braking distance is increasing, and I'm getting it checked out immediately. Brakes are obviously the most important safety system on the truck. If brakes fail completely, you might have a runaway truck situation, and that's potentially fatal not just for me, but for anyone near me. So brake maintenance is non-negotiable. Lighting is easier to neglect but still important. All the lights, headlights, tail lights, marker lights, turn signals, brake lights, they all need to work. Not just for my visibility, but so other drivers can see me and see what I'm doing. So part of my regular routine is a light check, walking around the truck after dark or in a tunnel or parking structure where I can see if all lights are functioning. Bulbs burn out, connections corrode, and catching these problems early prevents getting pulled over by DOT or, worse, causing an accident because someone couldn't see me. I keep detailed maintenance records, another ritual that's boring but essential. Every oil change, every repair, every replacement part, I document it. Date, mileage, what was done, who did it. This serves multiple purposes. It helps me track patterns, understand if something is failing repeatedly, which might indicate a larger problem. It creates a complete history for the truck, which helps with resale value. And it protects me if there's ever a question about whether maintenance was being performed properly. Oil changes happen religiously every time I hit the recommended mileage interval, not a mile later. I schedule them, plan routes to make sure I'm near a good truck service center when I'm due. And I'm picky about where I get service done. I've developed relationships with certain truck stops and service centers over the years, places where I trust the mechanics, where I know they're going to do quality work and not try to upsell me on stuff I don't need. These mechanic relationships are part of the ritual too. There's a Freightliner dealer in Ohio where I've been getting service for probably 15 years. The service manager knows me by name, knows my truck, keeps notes on its history. When I call for an appointment, they fit me in, sometimes ahead of scheduled appointments, because I've been a loyal customer and I don't abuse that loyalty by being demanding or unreasonable. I pay my bills promptly, I treat their staff with respect, and in return they take good care of me. Similarly, there's an independent truck repair shop in Arizona, run by a guy named Ray who's probably the best diesel mechanic I've ever met. Ray can diagnose problems by sound, literally just listening to the engine. He solved issues that stumped other mechanics. He's fair with his pricing, and he's become a friend, someone I trust completely. When I'm in his area and I have any mechanical concerns, I stop by even if it's not an emergency. He'll take a quick look, tell me if something needs immediate attention or if it can wait, give me his honest assessment. That trust built over years of interactions is invaluable. The relationship with mechanics is interesting because it's a relationship built entirely on competence and honesty. I don't hang out with Ray socially. We don't exchange Christmas cards. But when my truck is in his shop, I know it's in good hands, and that knowledge allows me to relax, to trust, to not worry about getting ripped off or having shoddy work done. And that's worth more than casual friendship in this context. Winterizing and summerizing the truck are seasonal maintenance rituals. As winter approaches, I'm checking the heater, making sure engine block heater is functioning if the truck has one, switching to winter weight diesel if I'm going to be in areas where fuel might gel, checking battery condition, because cold weather is hard on batteries. As summer approaches, I'm checking the AC system, making sure coolant is fresh, making sure the cooling system is functioning optimally. And then there are the less frequent but still important maintenance tasks. Transmission service, differential service, replacing air filters and fuel filters, checking and adjusting clutch on trucks that still have manual transmissions, inspecting and replacing belts and hoses before they fail. These aren't daily or even weekly tasks, but they're on my mental calendar, and when they're due, I make them happen. Washing the truck might seem purely cosmetic, but it's part of the maintenance ritual too. A clean truck is a truck you can inspect properly, where you can see problems rather than having them hidden under layers of road grime. And there's something psychologically important about driving clean equipment, about having pride in how your truck looks. It's a form of self-respect, a statement that you care about your work and your tools. I've learned to do some repairs myself, simple things that don't require specialized tools or expertise. Changing light bulbs, replacing wiper blades, checking and adding fluids, changing CB antennas when they get damaged, various minor electrical work. Having these skills saves time and money, and there's satisfaction in being able to solve problems myself rather than always depending on mechanics. But I also know my limits. Complex engine work, transmission problems, electrical issues beyond the basic, those go to professionals. I don't have the training or the tools or the time to handle them myself, and attempting repairs beyond my skill level could make problems worse. So knowing when to DIY and when to seek expert help is part of the wisdom that comes from experience. The maintenance ritual has taught me patience. Sometimes repairs take time. Parts have to be ordered. Mechanics get backed up. You might be stuck waiting for a day or two or more. Learning to accept this, to not get frustrated or angry, to just roll with it, that's been an ongoing practice. Getting angry at the situation doesn't fix anything faster. It just makes you miserable and makes the people trying to help you less motivated to prioritize your needs. And the maintenance ritual has reinforced the importance of preparation. Breakdowns happen despite best efforts at preventive maintenance. So being prepared for breakdown situations, having roadside assistance coverage, having a plan for what to do if the truck won't start or makes a terrible noise or starts leaking something, knowing who to call and what information they'll need, all of this is part of the broader maintenance ritual. I carry a basic tool kit in the truck, things I might need for minor repairs or adjustments. Wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, a flashlight, duct tape, electrical tape, zip ties, fuses, various small spare parts. Most days I never touch any of it, but having it means that when I do need something, it's available. And I've helped other drivers who were broken down on the roadside, lent them tools or helped them diagnose problems, because that's part of the driver community code. We help each other when we can. The maintenance ritual connects to financial planning too. Maintaining a truck costs money, sometimes a lot of money. Major repairs can run thousands of dollars. So budgeting for maintenance, setting money aside for expected and unexpected repairs, this is part of professional discipline. I can't control when something will break, but I can control whether I have the money to fix it when it does. And finally, the maintenance ritual is about gratitude. When I complete a walk around and everything checks out fine, when I get back a service report saying the truck is in good condition, when I pass a DOT inspection with no violations, these moments prompt gratitude. Gratitude for reliable equipment, for skilled mechanics, for the resources to maintain things properly, for another day of being able to work safely. This attitude of gratitude, it might sound cheesy, but it's real. It keeps me from taking good fortune for granted, keeps me appreciative of the many things that have to go right for this job to work. So the maintenance ritual, unglamorous as it is, sits alongside all the other rituals as essential. It's the foundation, really. Without good equipment maintenance, without that discipline and commitment to keeping the truck in top condition, everything else is built on sand. You might have perfect weather reading skills and beautiful sunset watching spots and a great coffee routine, but if your truck breaks down, you're going nowhere. The maintenance ritual keeps the dream alive, keeps the wheels rolling, keeps me employed and safe and mobile. It deserves respect and attention equal to any of the more obviously meaningful rituals I've described. The road is calling again. Tomorrow morning, the alarm will sound at 4:30. I'll take my 60 seconds of stillness, stand and stretch, greet the truck, do my walk around, find my coffee, turn on the CB, and head out into another day. Another sunrise to witness, another state line to cross, another sunset to catch if I'm lucky, another evening to navigate, another night to rest, another meal to eat. The rituals will carry me through, as they always have, as I trust they always will, for however many more years I keep turning the key and rolling down these American highways.